I invite you to turn to page 910 in your Pew Bible or in your own Bible to Luke chapter 17, and we'll be starting with verse 11. Again, page 910 in the Pew Bible. On the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was passing along between Samaria and Galilee. And as he entered a village, he was met by 10 lepers, who stood at a distance and lifted up their voices and said, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." When he saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priest." That's what they did to be pronounced healed. And as they went, they were cleansed. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice, and he fell on his face at Jesus' feet, giving him thanks. Now he was a Samaritan. Then said Jesus, "Were not 10 cleansed? Where are the 9? Was no one found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner?" And he said to him, "Rise and go your way. Your faith has made you well." May the Lord add his blessing to the reading of his word.
We call ourselves your own.
give thanks for y'all, for your ministry to us, Sunday after Sunday. Peter, you too back there. Where are you? We are so grateful for your ministry here, the way that you give to lead us in worship meaningfully. So we're thinking about gratitude today. I was thinking back on some times in my life when it was happy dance time. Maybe it was when he asked, or maybe it was when she said yes. Maybe it was when your first child came, or your second child, or your third child. Maybe it was when you passed the test, or you got the degree, or you finally got that job, or you bought the house, or you paid it off. Maybe it was when you saw someone you hadn't seen in so very long, and you finally had them in your arms again. Maybe it was when you reached a huge goal, like running 100 miles. Or you had a huge blessing, like becoming the pastor of a wonderful church. Maybe it was when the doctor said, there's no more disease, no evidence of anything wrong. So you know what I'm talking about. The times when you were so grateful you jumped up and down, or you would have if you'd been able. When you did your happy dance, maybe you cried, like I'm threatening to. Gratitude and joy just go hand in hand, don't they? We hug, we laugh, we dance, we cry. Because gratitude and response also go hand in hand. It's awful hard to feel gratitude and not express it. Often people will say, well, thank God. But what do those words mean? We hear them all the time. Well, thank God. I remember in high school I had a friend who was sometimes agnostic, sometimes atheist, depended on the day, what he just read. And I remember one particular time he was glad about something. He said, well, thank God. And I said, but Michael, you don't believe in God. And he went, oh okay, well, I don't know, thanks. Just didn't know where to go with that, but wanted to so badly. Well, here we have 10 lepers, 10 people who are undoubtedly thrilled to be free of a horrible disease, but only one does something with that gratitude. How could they have not all thanked Jesus? Think with me about leprosy for a minute, which still exists in our world. It's called Hansen's disease, and there is a cure, but of course it can't restore what's been lost. Hansen's disease is a very contagious bacterial infection. It attacks the nervous system. It's as old as 600 BC and probably before. It causes disfigurement of skin and bones. It twists limbs. It curls fingers to form a claw. It causes tumor-like growths on the skin and in the respiratory tract. And it may very well destroy the optic nerve if given opportunity, so blindness also ensues. Most deformities develop, though, from the loss of feeling. Loss of feeling then causes the person to do things that touch things that would be painful, but they don't feel the pain. And so they suffer much from nerve damage and injury they don't even realize they've received. Well, of course, back in that time and in the law of the Jews, they had to call out, unclean, unclean, wherever they were, because it was so contagious. Imagine what that would feel like, that wherever you were, you had to keep such a distance from others and cry out about yourself, unclean. Have you ever felt like that in any way in your life? Have you ever felt like one of the unclean? Well, this leper, this one that was grateful, he wasn't even just a leper. He was a Samaritan leper. And the only reason these other lepers, these Jewish lepers, would have him in their company was because they were lepers too. But this Samaritan knew, probably experienced it from them, that had they all been well, those others would have had nothing to do with him. But they made a community out of their illness. Well, these other 9, what about it? I mean, weren't they grateful? Weren't they grateful? Why didn't they thank Jesus? Were they just too happy, too excited? Did they maybe try to find him later? I guess they were just focused on the pleasure of the moment. Could they have expected it? Perhaps. But then you wonder what they thought about the Samaritan getting healed. I mean, maybe they were pretty good Jews. Maybe they thought, well, he found us. Maybe we're somehow deserving of this. But then, what about this fella? Why was he healed? I mean, everybody knows Samaritans, they don't really believe what you're supposed to believe. They don't really adhere to the correct scriptures. They don't have the right belief system. Why did this guy get healed? Well, think about what it meant to be healed. They were going to have a normal life again. They were going to look normal again. I remember a while back I had this thing removed off my nose. And I had this big black cat gut stitches on my nose. And for a while I had this big Band-Aid. I know some of y'all have been through moments like that. Went around for a while just going, well, unclean. I mean, I just felt like, what? Maybe I'll just wait a while till I go out in public. People looking at you with sad, I wonder what happened. Nobody wanting to ask you what happened, but you can see it on their face. They want to know what happened. You know, Keith making jokes about popping me one, you know. I tell you, I was going to be glad when that Band-Aid was gone and the stitches were out. And I made a joke to a youth that I was working with at the time about having a hideous scar, and a couple days later she said, yeah, that is pretty hideous. Yeah. They're going to look normal again. They're going to look like their old selves. They're going to be able to do all the things they used to do, to go to work, to go to temple, to not be unclean anymore. Best of all, they're going to be able to be with their families, to see their wives, to see their children, to be with other family and friends. Imagine not being able to see any of your loved ones, except maybe from a large distance, because they weren't going to be a danger to anyone anymore. Bad enough to look horrible, bad enough to have to yell unclean, but then to know that you're a danger to those you care about, to anyone, really. But not anymore. Not anymore. Well, this Samaritan leper, ex-leper, he couldn't help himself. He just couldn't help himself. He had experienced the one who healed him. He had seen him face to face. He knew his power. Just with a word, go show yourself to the priest. He knew this man cared about him, had come to him in his isolation, in his pain, in his loneliness. He had come to him. This healing was even for a Samaritan. Now, this was an inclusion he wasn't expecting. It was an acceptance from a Jewish rabbi that this one would come and do this for him. So it wasn't just healing. It was a healing of his heart. It was self-worth, given in a whole new way, beyond anything he'd ever known. It recreated him. And it would have to, wouldn't it? set him free, and it would change all the other relationships he would have in his life from that point on. He found more than physical healing. He found more than physical restoration. He found a restoration of his entire life, and most of all, the restoration of his soul, because he was grateful enough to respond with thanks. Think about what gratitude can set us free from. It sets us free from greed, from covetousness, from wanting what we want when we want it, in a culture that just wants to give us whatever it is before we ask. It saves us from treating people as things and things like they're people. Gratitude floods us with such joy for what we have, and especially for the people in our lives, that we don't take things for granted like we might have. Gratitude sets us free from fear. When we fear, we're focused on negative things. We're focused on the possibility of loss. We're afraid of risking. So we draw up the wagons, protect ourselves. But with gratitude, we don't give in to that fear. We live. It opens our hearts and minds. It reminds us of all we have and all we've had. It renews our hope that God has always had our back and will always have our back. Gratitude sets us free from anger. You know, anger really comes from feelings of entitlement, feelings of, why is this happening to me? Why have you allowed this to happen to me, God? Somewhere in the back of our minds, we go back so easily to that bad things happen to bad people, but not good people. But gratitude reminds us that God has been there. God has blessed us. God has strengthened us. God has molded us, even out of the tough stuff, and especially out of the tough stuff, and remade us. Remade us. And that's hope, friends, because the tough stuff is going to come. But if God can make something beautiful out of it, like the clay in the hands of the potter, we have such hope. And we can rejoice. It's not a waste what's happening to us. You know, gratitude is the antidote for many things. For a critical spirit, for cockiness and bragging, for blaming, whining, complaining, for being judgmental, for having contempt, for discrediting, for pouting, for being insensitive and pessimistic, just to name a few. But gratitude erases them all. So let me just suggest in our final moments of sermon time, some things, some ways we can really say, thank God. Tell God, thank you. And tell others, even better. I think God would love it just for us to go out in this world and tell anyone who will listen what he has done for us. You know, we get our tires. I'm just going to say this right out. Let's get him some advertisement. Collinsville Tires is where we get our tires. And the manager there is Charlie. I don't know his last name, but I'm betting some of you all know him. And that man, every time we have gone there, is always telling anybody who will listen what God has done for him. I just feel lifted up every time I've been with Charlie. Tell him. Tell anybody who will listen. And then listen to them. And share yourself with them. Share your faith especially with them. Share your life with them. Truly forgive people. Help them to find God's forgiveness. Ask God to help you if you need help forgiving them. And God will give it. Give back. You know, when someone does something nice for us, they take us out to dinner or whatever it is, we want to turn right around and take them out. We want to write them a note. We can barely stand it if we don't pay them back somehow. Well, let's think about God in that way. Give back. Ask God to show you how you can give back and how you can pay it forward, too. I was hearing a man the other day just talking about how whenever he goes through a toll booth, he pays also for the car behind him. like to be behind him, right? Give generously. Look for ways to give anything and everything that you have, not just money. There's so much we can give. You know, a moment that just will never leave me, if I forget most everything else in my life, I will not forget when Karen, the young woman who was just here with her baby and her child this past Sunday, she was in my youth group once upon a time. Well, after she had grown up and gone and gotten married, and we were here, and it was 2006, and I was down at Forsyth Hospital after colon cancer surgery, and she lived in Northern Virginia, and she drove all the way down. See me in the hospital. I just, every time I see her, I thank her for that. Give generously. Do whatever you can. Even this, a small word, seemingly small to us, will change someone's life. And when I think of our deacons, I think of the ministry they have entered into, the things that they will do, the things that those who have rolled off have done. Lord, we are so grateful for them and for Ken and for Ronnie and their willingness to serve in this ministry now. Maybe you too, the next time they ask you, would you be willing to leave your name on the list for eligible deacon? Maybe it will be the time to say yes. But whether you're a deacon or not, you can give. Well, we turn to our invitation time now. And what I'm going to invite you to do is take that note card you have. We're not going to sing a hymn of invitation. We're going to think and we're going to write during our invitation, because I'm inviting you to write down a way in which you are grateful for someone in your life. Maybe that person is here present. Maybe it is someone outside of these walls today. I invite you that before you leave, if they are here, you give them what you have written and tell them. Maybe you'll want to do that during the invitation time after you've written. Maybe you'll want to give it to them after we've dismissed and we're just visiting, because you know we hang around and visit a good bit after the service. Or maybe you'll want to tell them some other time in the week when you have more time. Use this invitation time as you feel led of the Lord to do. And as I said, if you want, you may go to them during this time and give them the note if they're here. Also, if anyone would like to unite with this church, you're seeking membership with a wonderful family of faith, well, let me tell you, unbiasedly, if that's a word, this is a great place. God is here. There is so much love and so much commitment and joy, willingness to serve and be family together. Come if you feel the Lord leading you, or if you would like to make a first-time commitment to the Lord and say you would like to receive baptism and become a member of the church. Come as you feel led during this time of invitation.